President Biden will cancel $200 billion in medical debt for the American people. That was an article I read just the other day. Now, I want to touch on this because this is very misleading. Can President Biden cancel $200 billion in medical debt for the American people? Yes, he probably could. Is it legal? We don't know. But here's what we do know. More than 100 million Americans hold some form of medical debt, which totals more than $200 billion. That's much less than the student loan debt that's being canceled at the moment, or technically it's on hold, but it's still moving forward. Just like student loan debt though, medical debt, this leads to things like food insecurity, increased rates of eviction, less savings and less retirement, and just overall bad health conditions and outcomes, right? These were things that Congress or certain members of Congress were talking about. They were talking about providing for the American people to make sure they're not food insecure. They talked about providing for the American people to make sure they had a home. It didn't just have to be an affordable home, just make sure they had a home, a place to lay their head, keep their belongings, right? Well, here's the problem. We have heard from Congress over the last year about helping to tackle the major problems around medical debt, but they haven't addressed the debt itself. They passed things like the No Surprises Act, which the point of that was to protect patients from receiving a surprise bill from any out-of-network care. However, the issue with that is more than 20% of people that were recently surveyed said they continue to receive surprise bills that they did not realize that they were going to get. So that's one of the things that Congress has done. Congress has also decided to take on prescription medications through their Inflation Reduction Act that was passed just this past 6 months ago, right? But the problem there is that it still leaves the door open for some price gouging. But here's the biggest problem now, or the latest problem, is medical debt. Now, one of the questions that I got recently was, hey, is there anything going on for the cancellation of medical debt? And here it is. Yes and no. There are still lawmakers discussing, canceling medical debt. But there's a lot of people that are still speculating that President Biden doesn't have the legal authority to cancel student loan debt. And if he doesn't have the legal authority to cancel student loan debt, he doesn't have the legal authority to cancel medical debt. Now, both of these are very different because he's canceling federal student loan debt. Okay? He's not going to cancel private medical debt. That is going to be just a huge, huge issue for all Democrats. Now, if student loan debt can be forgiven, then medical debt could be forgiven as well. However, it would have to go through Congress. Okay? At this point, it's still unclear whether or not student loan debt can be forgiven. Okay? But this is also why lawmakers are looking into whether or not medical debt could be next. As of right now, the answer would be no. Okay? Will President Biden cancel $200 billion in medical debt? The answer is no. And I say this because let's just say Congress, it doesn't change, right? We see Democrats still hold the majority in the House. We see there's still a 50-50 split in the Senate, which is actually controlled by Democrats because of Kamala Harris being the tie-breaking vote. Well, if that is exactly how we go into 2023, the answer would be no. We would not see President Biden and Congress cancel $200 billion in medical debt because it would be very difficult for Congress to get enough votes to take on another $200 billion in debt. And again, Senator Joe Manchin is not going to let this happen. Now, we could see this debt be paid for by new revenue, but it's not going to be from the IRS, because there's $80 billion going to the IRS. That money that is going to the IRS is supposed to hire new agents, which that money, that new revenue, has already been accounted for. Now, we have seen Democrats double dip in the past year or two, but I don't see this happening again. We could also, and again, this isn't part of the problem, we could also see Congress come out and bring in new revenue through attacking only the wealthy or the largest corporations. They've already tried to do this, and they have failed. Okay? So, do I think President Biden is going to cancel $200 billion in medical debt? I don't. But do I think there's going to be other legislation that will be passed to help those that do have medical debt? I do. I do think something's going to happen, but, and here, this is the big thing, I don't think it's going to happen until potentially sometime at the end of 2023. We got to get through this inflation issue first. Once we get through inflation, once the Federal Reserve can attack that, once we get through a potential recession, which I know a lot of people say, why do you say potential? It's because that's what the White House says. Technically, we are in a recession right now. But once we get through 2023, I would expect early 2024, we will see something happen for medical debt. And I say this because what's some of the biggest things people are worried about right now? They're worried about student loan debt. They're worried about inflation, right? Inflation's killing the Biden administration and Democrats, but student loan debt, this is really helping them out, leading into the next election, which is just in like 2 weeks. So, do I think medical debt is next? I think it's possible. I think there's going to be some form of legislation that would be passed first before we see anything go towards medical debt. But again, we have to, and this is where Republicans have been very adamant with student loan debt, is you have to attack the underlying problems. So with medical debt, first, they made sure you cannot price gouge, which some still are. And that was it from the Inflation Reduction Act. Then the No Surprises Act, where patients are not just going to be sent a bill, a surprise bill just out of the blue, right? So that's another thing. Those are two things they have done to fix the underlying problem so that we don't see the medical debt just balloon up like it has with student loan debt. So that's the good news, is they're attacking the problem first, and then the end solution could be, let's forgive medical debt. Now, is this going to happen? Again, I'm trying to be 100% honest with you and real. I don't see them canceling medical debt, at least now. But is this part of the discussions? Yes, it is. There's many lawmakers that are discussing how can we cancel medical debt. The only issue is it cannot be done, at least I do not believe it can be done through an executive order through President Biden himself. Okay? Could it be done through Congress, through legislation? Yes, it could. But again, they have to fund it. That's the problem. So, I just wanted to answer this question because I know I've been getting a lot of these questions lately. I've been getting a lot of people that are sending me these articles that President Biden is going to cancel $200 billion in medical debt for the American people. No, that is not what has been said. That is a question. Okay? So, and let me know this, because I'm just curious. It says in recent records, 100 million people, 100 million Americans hold some form of medical debt, which totals more than $200 billion. I'm just curious, how much medical debt roughly do you have? Now, I think the numbers are a little bit off, they're a little bit skewed, but again, let me know down in the comment section below. But that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you have any questions whatsoever, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. Again, just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.